He sold his prized Mustang to save her life, but she left him for a man with deeper pockets. Her venomous words cut deep. "You're weak, Alex. Love doesn't pay for my dreams." She had no idea the man she betrayed was about to unravel her world with a revenge so sharp it'd leave her begging for forgiveness. Can you forgive a betrayal this cruel? Drop your thoughts below. The rain slammed against the pavement in San Antonio, Texas, turning the streets into rivers of flickering neon. Alex Rivera, a 32-year-old mechanic, hunched over the counter in his small apartment, wiping grease from his hands after a long shift at the garage. His pride, a 1967 Ford Mustang, sat parked outside, its sleek frame a testament to years of sweat and overtime. That car wasn't just metal and chrome. It was proof he could build something lasting, a reward for every late night spent under a hood. The clock ticked past 7 a.m. when a sharp crash shattered the morning quiet. Alex spun around, his heart lurching as he saw his wife, Sophia, crumpled on the kitchen floor, a shattered coffee mug beside her. Her chest heaved unevenly, her hands clutching at nothing. "Sophia," he shouted, dropping to his knees, his fingers fumbling for her pulse. It was weak, erratic. Panic clawed at him as he grabbed his phone, dialing 911 with trembling hands. "She's not breathing right. Hurry," he barked, rattling off their address on Alamo Street. Sirens wailed closer, cutting through the storm. Alex cradled Sophia's head, whispering her name like a lifeline, urging her to hold on. The ambulance screeched to a stop outside, red and blue lights pulsing against the wet windows. Paramedics burst in, their boots tracking mud across the floor. They lifted Sophia onto a stretcher, strapping an oxygen mask over her pale face. Alex followed, climbing into the ambulance, his hand gripping hers as the vehicle tore through the city. The paramedic's voice was steady but urgent, calling out vitals while Alex stared at Sophia, willing her to stay with him. At Methodist Hospital, the antiseptic air hit like a wall. Nurses rushed Sophia through swinging doors, leaving Alex stranded in the hallway. He paced, his work boots squeaking on the polished floor, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Hours dragged by, each minute heavier than the last. Finally, a doctor approached, clipboard in hand, his expression grim. "Mr. Rivera, your wife has a severe heart condition. She needs surgery immediately. Your insurance covers part, but there's a gap." He slid a paper across, the number staring back like a punch, $40,000. Alex's stomach dropped. His savings were a few $100, enough for rent, not miracles. His job at the garage paid enough to keep them afloat, but this was a chasm. He thought of the Mustang, his one asset, his one triumph. By noon, he was at the dealership, the rain still pounding outside. The buyer, a wiry man with a clipboard, counted out the cash under harsh fluorescent lights. Alex signed the title, each pen stroke a surrender of years of pride. The Mustang's keys left his hand, and with them, a piece of himself. Back at the hospital, he pushed the envelope of cash across the cashier's window. The clerk stamped a receipt, her eyes softening for a moment. Alex tucked the paper into his wallet, a quiet proof of what he'd given up. In Sophia's room, machines beeped softly, her chest rising and falling under thin hospital sheets. He leaned close, his voice low but steady. "You're worth more than anything I own," he said, the words carrying a conviction that steadied his shaking hands. Her eyes stayed closed, but he held on to the hope that she'd heard him. The surgery stretched through the night. Alex sat in the waiting room, hands clasped, staring at the floor as if it held answers. Dawn broke, and the doctor emerged, a tired smile breaking through. "She's stable. The procedure worked." Relief flooded Alex, sharp and warm, like blood rushing back to a numb limb. He rushed to her bedside, grasping her hand, feeling the faint squeeze of her fingers. For the first time in hours, he exhaled. Love, he told himself, had pulled them through. Weeks later, Sophia was home. Color returned to her cheeks, her steps steadier each day. Alex adapted to the bus, his walks longer now without the Mustang's familiar rumble. Neighbors nodded with respect. Some called him a hero, others whispered about his loss. Sophia cooked dinners at first, her laughter filling the apartment again. She leaned against him on the couch, her warmth a reminder of why he'd done it. But as days turned to weeks, something shifted. Her smiles grew forced, her eyes darting to her phone more often. She'd scroll late into the night, her laughter sharp and private, meant for someone else. When Alex asked, she brushed him off with a wave. "Just friends," she said. but her voice carried an edge he couldn't place. The apartment felt smaller, the air heavier. Alex caught her staring out the window at neighbors' gleaming trucks, her fingers tracing the edge of a new bracelet he hadn't bought. Doubt crept in, but he pushed it down. He'd given everything for her. Surely that meant something. Yet the silence between them grew, broken only by the glow of her screen. Love had saved her life, but Alex began to wonder if it could save them. The San Antonio sun beat down on Alex Rivera as he trudged home from the bus stop, his toolbox swinging heavily at his side. The absence of his 1967 Mustang stung daily, a void where pride once lived, but he told himself it was worth it for Sophia's health. Their apartment on Alamo Street buzzed with her newfound energy. She moved with purpose now, cooking less, leaving dishes in the sink. Yet, the warmth Alex expected from her recovery never fully materialized. Instead, a restless undercurrent ran through their home. Sophia's phone became her constant companion. Late at night, its glow lit up her side of the bed, her fingers tapping out messages with a rhythm that excluded Alex. Her laughter, once shared freely, now came in short bursts, directed at someone unseen. "Who's that?" Alex asked one evening, setting down a wrench he'd been cleaning. Sophia didn't look up. "Just a friend from work," she said, her tone clipped, dismissing him like a customer at the garage. He let it slide, chalking it up to her adjusting after the hospital. But the signs piled up. Sophia started leaving the apartment more often, her excuses vague. "Meeting some girls," she'd say, slipping on heels that clicked sharply against the hardwood floor as she headed out. Alex noticed a new bracelet glinting on her wrist, its delicate gold chain catching the light, a piece he'd never seen before, far beyond his paycheck. Once, he found a receipt in her purse for a dinner at a downtown steakhouse, the kind of place where entrees cost more than his daily earnings. When he asked about it, she shrugged. "Work thing," she said, her eyes avoiding his. At the garage, Alex threw himself into work, hoping the grind would drown out the unease gnawing at him. His coworkers noticed his silence, tossing him sympathetic glances as they polished chrome or tightened bolts. One night, while scrubbing oil from his hands, he overheard Sophia on the phone in the living room. Her voice carried a bite he hadn't heard before. "He gave up his car for me, sure, but what's that worth? I need someone who can keep up with me, not drag me down." The words landed like a socket wrench dropped on concrete. Alex froze, water dripping from his hands, the sting of her dismissal cutting deeper than any blade. He didn't confront her that night. Instead, he lay beside her in the dark, her phone's light flickering as she typed. The distance between them stretched wider than the bed they shared. He replayed her words, each one a brick in a wall he hadn't seen being built. Loyalty had been his anchor, the reason he'd traded his Mustang for her life. Now, it felt like a chain holding him to a sinking ship. Sophia's absences grew bolder. She'd return late, her perfume sharp and unfamiliar, her stories about friends thinner each time. Alex spotted a new necklace one morning, its pendant catching the kitchen light as she poured coffee. "Where'd that come from?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. "A gift," she said, not meeting his eyes, and changed the subject. The name Javier started slipping into her conversations. Javier from work. Javier who closed big deals. Javier who drove a BMW that roared through the city like it owned the streets. One evening, Alex came home to find Sophia packing a suitcase. She moved with precision, folding dresses into neat stacks, her movements unapologetic. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice flat, like she was stating the weather. "Javier gives me what I need, a real life, not this." She gestured at the apartment, at Alex, as if he were part of the furniture she'd outgrown. He stood in the doorway, his hands clenched, searching for words that wouldn't come. Outside, a sleek BMW idled, its headlights slicing through the dusk. Javier Morales stepped out, his posture confident, his watch glinting as he opened the car door for Sophia. Neighbors lingered on their porches, their eyes darting between the car and Alex's still figure. Sophia didn't look back as she slid into the passenger seat, her suitcase stowed in the trunk. The engine growled, and the car vanished into the San Antonio night, leaving Alex alone with the hum of the streetlights. He stood there, the weight of her betrayal pressing against his chest, heavier than the toolbox he carried daily. He'd given everything, his car, his pride, his trust, and she'd walked away without a glance. Inside, the apartment was too quiet, the air thick with absence. Alex sank onto the couch, his hands gripping his knees. The receipt from the hospital, still tucked in his wallet, felt like a relic of a promise no one else kept. But in the silence, something sparked, not defeat, but a flicker of resolve. Sophia had made her choice. Alex wasn't sure what his next move was, but he knew one thing. He wasn't done fighting for himself. The San Antonio streets glistened under a late summer storm, lightning cracking the sky as Alex Rivera walked home from the garage. His boots slapped against wet pavement, his toolbox heavier with every step since Sophia's departure. The absence of his Mustang, sold to save her life, lingered like a bruise, but her betrayal cut deeper. He pushed through the rain, head down, until a screech of tires shattered the night. A black SUV veered across Zarzamora Street, slamming into a light pole with a sickening crunch. Sparks hissed from the crumpled hood, smoke curling into the downpour. Alex dropped his toolbox, instinct overriding exhaustion. He sprinted to the wreck, rain blurring his vision as he yanked at the driver's door. It was jammed, the metal groaning under his pull. With a grunt, he braced his shoulder and forced it open, the hinges screaming in protest. Inside, an older man slumped against the steering wheel, blood trickling from his forehead, his breath shallow. Alex unbuckled the seatbelt, sliding his arms under the man's shoulders to drag him free. Smoke stung his eyes as he hauled the stranger onto the wet asphalt, shielding him from the rain until sirens wailed closer. Paramedics swarmed, lifting the man onto a stretcher and speeding toward Baptist Medical Center. Alex followed, his soaked clothes clinging to him, his pulse still racing from adrenaline. In the hospital's stark waiting area, he sat, hands clasped, unsure why he stayed. He wasn't kin, just a stranger who'd acted when no one else did. Yet something held him there, a pull he couldn't name. Through a glass panel, he glimpsed the man, bandaged, hooked to monitors, chest rising steadily. Nurses moved with quiet efficiency, their voices a low hum against the beeping machines. Hours later, a doctor approached. "He's stable, thanks to you getting him out fast. You can see him if you want." Alex nodded, stepping into the room. The man, Victor Delgado, stirred, his eyes sharpening as they landed on a pendant hanging from Alex's neck. A simple silver chain, a gift from his late mother. "That necklace," Victor rasped, his voice weak but urgent. "Where'd you get it?" Alex's hand grazed the pendant, a reflex born of years wearing it. His mother's words echoed from her hospice bed 7 years ago. "This was your father's. It'll find him when the time's right." He'd thought it a dying woman's comfort, not a map. "My mother gave it to me," Alex said, his throat tight. Before she passed, Victor's gaze locked on the pendant, his breath catching. He leaned back, eyes closing briefly, then opened them with a resolve that filled the room. "Get a doctor," he told the nurse. "We need a DNA test. His and mine." Alex's heart thudded, confusion warring with a strange certainty. The nurse returned with swabs, scraping the inside of Alex's cheek, then Victor's. The vials disappeared down the hall, carrying a question that could rewrite everything. 2 days later, Alex sat in the same waiting area, his fingers tracing the pendant's edges. The hospital's hum felt louder now, each beep a countdown. Victor's room was quiet when Alex entered, the older man holding a white envelope. He tore it open, his hands steady despite the bandages. His eyes scanned the paper, then closed, a single breath escaping like a confession. "You're my son," he said, voice breaking but sure. The words landed with the weight of a door swinging open, revealing a truth Alex had never sought. Victor's story spilled out in fragments. Decades ago, a brief romance in San Antonio ended when Alex's mother vanished, pregnant, leaving no trace. Victor had built a construction empire, Delgado Enterprises, but never found her or the child she carried. The pendant, a gift he'd given her, was the only link. Alex's mind spun, his mother's promise no longer a faint memory, but a prophecy fulfilled. He'd lived as a man with nothing, his car sold, his wife gone, but now stood claimed by a legacy he hadn't known existed. Victor's recovery moved fast after that. By week's end, he was sitting up, barking orders to assistants who scrambled to keep up. He insisted Alex visit daily, sharing stories of deals won and battles fought in boardrooms. "You've got my blood," Victor said one morning, his voice firm. "This company needs you." Alex hesitated, his life as a mechanic worlds apart from corporate towers. But the pendant, warm against his chest, tethered him to this moment. Sophia's betrayal had stripped him bare, but fate had handed him a new beginning, one that would soon turn her world to dust. The San Antonio skyline gleamed under a late afternoon haze as Alex Rivera stepped into the towering offices of Delgado Enterprises. The glass doors hissed shut behind him, sealing out the city's hum. Victor Delgado, his newly found father, had insisted he join the company, and Alex, still reeling from the DNA test, agreed to try. His days as a mechanic felt distant now, replaced by spreadsheets and boardroom briefings. He moved cautiously in this new world, his work boots swapped for polished shoes, but his sharp mind, honed by years diagnosing engines, proved a natural fit for untangling numbers. Alex spent late nights poring over financial records, learning the pulse of the business. One evening, a name jumped out from a contract, Javier Morales. The signature sprawled across a deal for a downtown condo project, bold and careless. Alex's jaw tightened. Javier, the man Sofia left him for, the one who'd idled in his BMW outside their apartment, worked here, a senior manager in Victor's empire. Alex carried the file to Victor's office, his steps deliberate. "This guy," he said, sliding the document across the desk. "He's the one who took Sofia." Victor's eyes narrowed, scanning the papers. "Let's dig deeper," he said, voice low and steady. The audit began quietly, but moved like wildfire. Alex worked alongside forensic accountants, tracing Javier's transactions. Discrepancies surfaced: offshore accounts, inflated invoices, payments funneled to shell companies. Javier had siphoned over $3 million, betting on his charm to keep it hidden. Victor didn't hesitate. He called a board meeting, scheduling it for Friday. Alex sat at his father's right, the stack of evidence between them, each page a nail in Javier's coffin. The boardroom doors swung open, and Javier strode in, his confidence unshaken, unaware of the trap. Victor's voice cut through the room's murmur. "Mr. Morales, you've been stealing from this company. From me." He pushed the files forward, numbers glaring under the fluorescent lights. Javier's smirk faltered, his hands fumbling for a pen as he stammered denials. "This is a mistake, Victor. I'd never." His words died as two police officers entered, their badges glinting. The board fell silent, eyes darting between Javier and the cuffs snapping around his wrists. His protests rose, sharp and panicked, but the officers hauled him out, his polished shoes dragging across the marble floor. Alex watched, his face unreadable. Javier's gaze locked on him as he passed, recognition flashing, then fear. The man who'd mocked Alex's sacrifice now faced his own ruin. The doors closed, leaving the boardroom in stunned quiet. Victor stood, addressing the table. "Dishonesty has no place here. Let this be clear." The executives nodded, papers shuffling as they absorbed the warning. Alex stepped outside, the city's heat hitting him like a wave. Javier's downfall wasn't joy. It was justice, clean and final. By Monday, the fallout spread. Javier's bank accounts were frozen, his BMW towed from his upscale condo's garage. Auction notices appeared on his property, his wealth unraveling like a cut thread. Sofia, who'd tied her future to Javier's promises, saw her new life collapse. She'd followed him to rooftop bars and private clubs, basking in his flashy gifts. Now, she packed her belongings into worn bags, the gold bracelet and necklace, once symbols of her ambition, pawned to cover rent. Javier's calls to lawyers went unanswered, his empire reduced to court dates and headlines. Sofia stood outside Delgado Enterprises one morning, her heels sinking into the gravel lot. Reporters lingered nearby, cameras ready for the next chapter of the scandal. She approached the security gate, her voice trembling. "Tell Alex it's Sofia. I need to see him." The guard radioed up, but Alex, watching from a window above, didn't move. He saw her, smaller now, clutching her purse, her confidence gone. The woman who'd left him for a better life stood humbled, but he felt no urge to open the gate. Her choices had built this moment. Victor joined him, leaning on a cane, his voice calm but firm. "She traded you for a thief. Let her face the consequences." Alex nodded, his silence louder than any response. Outside, Sofia's pleas grew desperate. "Alex, I was wrong. Javier's nothing now. Please." Her voice cracked, but the gate stayed shut. Reporters snapped photos, capturing her defeat. Alex turned away, the city's skyline stretching before him. He'd given everything once. Now he chose himself. San Antonio's morning sun cast long shadows across the Delgado Enterprises tower, its glass facade reflecting the city's pulse. Alex Rivera stood in his father's office, flipping through a contract for a new housing development. The role of heir still felt like a borrowed skin, But he moved with purpose, his mechanics' precision now applied to deals and deadlines. Victor Delgado watched from his desk, his health steadier since the crash, his trust in Alex unwavering. The company thrived, its reputation intact after Javier's arrest, but the air carried a final reckoning. News of Javier Morales' downfall spread like dust in a windstorm. Local papers splashed his name across front pages. Executive jailed in Delgado fraud scheme. His condo, once a symbol of untouchable wealth, stood empty, its contents auctioned to settle debts. Creditors claimed his assets, bank accounts drained, his prized BMW sold to the highest bidder. Javier now faced trial, his tailored suits replaced by a jumpsuit, his charm useless behind bars. Neighbors who once envied him now whispered about his greed, their voices carrying no pity. Sofia, tethered to Javier's sinking ship, felt the weight of her choices. The lavish dinners and hotel suites she'd chased vanished, leaving her in a cramped motel room off I-35. She sorted through belongings, packing what little remained into a duffel bag. The jewelry she'd flaunted, gifts from Javier's stolen funds, had been sold to cover bills. At night, she scrolled through news articles, each one a reminder of her misstep. Photos of Alex surfaced, showing him beside Victor at a charity gala, his presence commanding, a far cry from the man she'd left behind. Her fingers hesitated over her phone, the urge to call him battling the shame that anchored her. One gray morning, Sofia stood outside the Delgado estate, a sprawling property on the city's edge. The iron gates loomed, unyielding, as she gripped her purse, her knuckles pale. Reporters hovered nearby, sensing a story in her presence. "Tell Alex it's Sofia," she told the guard, her voice thin, almost lost in the breeze. "I just need a minute." The guard relayed the message, but Alex, standing on a balcony above, looked down without moving. Her silhouette was unmistakable, yet distant, like a memory he no longer needed. She'd walked away when he had nothing. Now, she stood begging at the gates of everything. "Alex, please," Sofia called, her voice breaking as she pressed against the bars. "I made a mistake. Javier's gone, and I've got nothing left. Don't do this." Her words carried desperation, but they fell flat against the estate's stone walls. The reporters' cameras clicked, capturing her plea, her humiliation framed for the evening news. Victor appeared at Alex's side, his cane tapping softly. "She chose her path," he said, his tone even but final. "Some bridges burn for a reason." Alex didn't respond, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the city met the sky. He turned back into the house, leaving Sofia's cries to fade. The gates stayed closed, a silent verdict on her betrayal. Alex didn't feel triumph or spite, just clarity. He'd poured his heart into saving her, selling his Mustang, his pride, to keep her alive. She'd repaid him with scorn, chasing a mirage that crumbled under scrutiny. Now, standing in his father's world, he saw the truth. Loyalty wasn't a debt others owed him. It was a choice he made for himself. Days later, Alex sat in a boardroom, signing off on a community center project Victor had championed. The work grounded him, its purpose echoing the discipline he'd learned in the garage. He wore his mother's pendant, its weight a reminder of her promise, a truth that found him when he least expected it. The headlines shifted, praising Delgado Enterprises for its recovery and Alex's rise as its new face. He didn't seek the spotlight, but it found him, just as his father had. Sofia, meanwhile, slipped into the city's margins. She took a job at a diner, her hands scrubbing counters instead of flaunting jewels. Each shift ended with her staring at her phone, the glow reflecting a regret she couldn't outrun. Javier's trial loomed, his name a cautionary tale whispered in San Antonio's power circles. Sofia's choice to follow him had cost her everything. Her home, her pride, her future. She'd gambled on greed and lost to a man who'd bet on love. Alex walked through the city one evening, the pendant cool against his chest. The streets felt different now, not because of wealth, but because of what he'd reclaimed, his worth. He'd given everything once, only to be discarded. Now, he built anew, not for revenge, but for the life he deserved. The question lingered. Could he have forgiven Sofia? Could betrayal ever heal? Viewers, what do you think? Should Alex have let her in, or was justice served by letting her face the consequences? Drop your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories where choices shape destinies.